Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy coming at you again, straightforward and direct, with another one like the other one, but just a little different. So, this subject matter is about knowing when to call a timeout. Uh, but just not only knowing when to call a timeout, but also answering a question that was posed to me a while back by a friend. And the question that was asked to me was, what's the difference between a tactical timeout and a military timeout? So I was like, okay, to me, they're the same. There's really no difference between a tactical timeout and a military timeout. They both serve the same purpose, which is to give, if you're the one calling this tactical timeout or this military timeout, if you're in the armed forces, the timeout itself serves to give you an advantage. It's used for different reasons, right? So, but before I go there, I want to talk about, when is it important to call a timeout? So, there's times when you should call a timeout. We're going to use sports for an example, okay? If I'm playing basketball, football, baseball, whatever, and my team is not playing well, and we need to regroup. We need to come together. We need to change some things that we're doing. We need to make some adjustments. At that moment in time, the coach is supposed to call a timeout. They cuddle to the sideline. He says, look, this is what we're going to do. This is what you're doing wrong. This is what you need to do. And that timeout serves a tactical purpose. So that will be considered a tactical timeout, right? And the reason that they're doing this is because they're losing, you know? When you're losing or, you're up against it or you're at a disadvantage, at these moments of time, it's critical that you slow things down. You pause. It's like playing that video game and then you press the pause button, right? Because you don't want to lose your place and you don't want to make a mistake. Maybe you have to think some things through before you continue to play. So when you're dealing, and it's really a tactical timeout when you're dealing with these important games. These games that decide whether you're going to get to the playoffs, or these games that, while you're in the playoffs, decides whether you're going to win the playoffs or not. So when you're dealing with things on that level, that's when it's not just a timeout; it's really a tactical timeout, right? Now, uh, 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 the times when you call a timeout is when you're fatigued and you're tired and you need the rest. That's one, okay? um you're in a mental fog. Right now you're not thinking clearly. You need a little time just to relax, right? So you call a timeout. Your opponent has the momentum in the game. They're bringing it to you. You need to slow this momentum down. They're on a good one. You call a timeout, right? um you and your teammates, it's a team sport, y'all not playing team ball. you know you're not gelling together, right? Call a timeout so that y'all can come together and figure out what's wrong. So, um, the for some reason, nothing's working out there. Every move that you make, it's getting countered and ran down your throat, right? So, what do? You call a timeout. Y'all need to come together and figure this stuff out, right? Two couples, they're clashing, they're clashing. It's not going in the right direction. He's saying this, she's saying that. Okay, y'all need to call a timeout and figure this out. You know what I'm saying? Because things are starting to escalate and it's starting to get worse. The arguments are getting worse. um let's call a timeout, and then usually in that timeout, they can seek some type of counseling. If they're married, marriage is called marriage counseling, right? So timeouts serve important purposes. uh and a boxing bout, there's a timeout between each round. After the first round, there's a timeout. After the second round, there's a timeout, and at each timeout the fighter is going to the corner, and in that corner he's speaking to his coach. And that timeout is not just a time to rest, it's also it serves a tactical. It's a tactical timeout because it gives each boxer the opportunity to regroup. The coach is telling him what he's doing wrong, what he's doing right, because a lot of times you may not know what you're doing wrong, you know, because you're too close to the trees to see the forest. It takes someone who's outside of yourself, who's actually witnessing everything that takes place, to tell you, look, this is what you're doing wrong. This is what you need to do, right? So that's a tactical timeout. Now, not only, okay, so we spoke about what the reasons why you want to take a timeout and what is a tactical timeout. So now I want to go over to what is a military timeout. So a military timeout is the same thing, but just on a higher scale now, okay? Because now you're dealing with serious life and death issues, serious life and death things, okay? It's more serious now. So now when a military, a group of people who are militant and armed, when they take a time out, it is because they need to regroup. They need to make sure that their supplies are right. They need to make sure that they're sticking to their plan. They need to change the way that they're doing things because they're losing. And if they don't change up, they can end up losing not only the battle, but if these things continue, they can end up losing the war. So they call these timeouts to get things together, right? They call timeout so that leaders can come together and speak about important things, okay? So a military timeout is very important because the fate of a nation may depend or rely on the ability of the people who's in charge of thinking things through to call the right time, to call a timeout at the right time, and to do the right things and to enforce the right things within that timeout. So a tactical timeout and a military timeout are pretty much the same thing. These are timeouts that are taken in order for someone to gain a tactical advantage in a situation. Look, guys, I will be the first to admit that if you're not willing to call a timeout in your life in order to fix some things that's wrong, you're playing to lose. Okay? If you're a member of a team of people, a workforce, a group, whatever, and things are not going right, and you don't want to call a timeout in order to get things together to fix it, you're playing to lose. Okay. If you're in a relationship with someone and it's not working out and y'all both going through the motions and you're not achieving, you're not progressing, things are not going the way you want it. If you don't call a timeout, you can find yourself stuck in a vicious circle and you'll look back, you've lost years of your life in this relationship, in this bad relationship, and things are still the same as they were day one. Okay, when all you had to do was call a timeout. And if you called a timeout, you could have remedied it. So calling a timeout is important. So one of the things that I do with people that I'm associated with is I offer my expertise when it comes to real life stuff. And what I tell them is this. I say, look, before you fly off the handle, before you make a bad decision, call a timeout, call me up and tell me what's up. Don't jump out there and make a bad decision and then you'll later on regret the decision that you made. So call a timeout, kick back, think things through, get at me on the phone, or if it's something that's so serious where you don't feel comfortable with talking about it on the phone, talk to me in person. I can help you figure it out, right? I'll try my best to put my mind on the table and listen to what you have to say and try to help you come up with a solution. And then once we've talked things through and you've come up with a game plan on how you want to deal with the problem, then that's when the timeout is over and it's time to take action. It's time to be proactive, right? And get things done. So, tactical timeout, military timeout. They both serve the same purpose, which is to give you a tactical advantage over someone, over a situation. It's to put you in on the winner side of things. Use it and take it to your advantage.